Damn it. Hey everybody, welcome back. So today we're going to work on the rear suspension of the shoebox. Try and get this two link set up. So I showed this in the intro video. We have our cross member. I got it set up in the car, and we need to take 1/8 of an inch off of each side in order to get in between our rails. When I cut that initially and set it all up, I made it a little bit long so that I could fine trim it once we got it in the car. So here's what we got going on here. So I have a line running from that front kingpin all the way back to where it's going to mount under the frame. So, and then that is where our mount will be. So these bars are going to slide back. The actual mount for the cross member will be up here. So we'll be quite a ways back further than we originally were. Originally it was going to be way up here, but we're probably, I don't know, half the distance that we originally were going to be. So yeah, we'll see how that works. We'll tack it in. We'll get the rear end in there, get everything tacked in, and then we'll articulate it and see how everything works. So back here, our bars will mount underneath where the frame is. It gets us as far out as possible, so we can get the biggest response in our suspension inside the frame rail, so that way we don't have to worry about our tires hitting. And then our bags, we're going to mount them directly on top if we have the room, and then we'll build a bracket up here on top of the frame for the bag. We're going to have to do a pretty serious C-notch because this is at ride height and you can already see how close it is. And in order to put the rocker on the ground, we got to drop the rear at least another 5 inches. So it's going to be a pretty serious C-notch, probably about 3-4 inches a notch. We'll tackle that when we get there. Right now we're just trying to get the basic setup of the suspension in. Make sure that in theory it's going to work, make any adjustments that we need to before we fully weld this thing all the way in. That way we don't foresee any problems in the future. We're going to originally run a panhard bar. I have been looking at a Watts link just because, why not? But we'll see. Probably just going to run a panhard bar because it's simple to run. It's not overly complicated. And with the 8/8, the cover is on the back, so it's not like a 9-inch where the third member comes out the front. The 8/8 does have a cover on the back. They are companies that make them, they bolt on. It has a big plate that goes on the back and got a bunch of spacers and it bolts onto it. They're about $500, or you can get the ones where the whole cover is part of the mount and they're like $1,200. So really not trying to spend that much. I've seen a few other variations on stuff that people have done, but we'll see. We could do a bar that runs like a diagonal bar or something up front, but we'll see how the two link goes and see what kind of room we got. Really don't want it to move sideways like a panhard bar does, but as long as it's level at ride height, we should be fine. I'm not going to be driving it around with it aired all the way out, so we'll see. And it's not going to be running some big meats in the back anyway. I'm going to run like an 8-inch wheel, something like that. So yeah, enough rambling. Let's cut this thing. We'll cut these ends off, trim them, and get it under the car. All right, so we got it all cut. Got it under here. I'll put you all back here. I can kind of see what's going on. So, gotta do a little bit of trimming still, but there's some undercoating and whatnot on there, so I'm gonna get that off first to make sure I don't go undersize, and then we'll fit in there. All right, so our cross member is in here. You see I still have another inch or so to go up, so I'm going to cut that top hole off. We're just going to lose a hole, which is fine. It probably didn't need to be there anyway. It was just kind of a guesstimate. I didn't really measure them. I just stuck them in there. So you see our string here runs through the middle, so this is pretty close to where we are going to need to be as far as the mounts. It probably needs to come forward a little bit because the string needs to be in the middle, but that's pretty damn close. So yeah, I think this will at least give us a starting point. So now I'll attach the links on, we'll shove them back in there, and we'll see if the joints themselves will clear our mounts. I might have to cut those mounts off and put them at an angle anyway, so this would be a good opportunity to figure out. That's kind of one reason why I didn't put them at an angle, is because I didn't know what angle we'd end up with, so I just put them straight. So yeah, let's get to that. All right, so we got this arm in the front up there mounted. Already got an issue. So like I thought, that joint is all the way articulated over, and we're pretty close to where I want them. But I really don't want the joint to be fully maxed out, and it's fully maxed out right now. So the good part is we'll clear that cross member there that I was worried about. So yeah, so we'll get we'll take this down, we'll pull the cross member back out, we'll angle those plates to where they need to be, and then put this all back in. We'll cut those top ears off, so we'll be good there. And then yeah, all right, trial. All right, tested it, see what works, see what doesn't. Cut, it's all a learning process, right? So we'll pull the cross member out, we'll after we get our angle that we need, and then we'll get it all back in. All right, so I think what we're going to do, all right, so instead of taking these off and putting them at an angle and all this other shit, I think we're going to cut our tube here, put it at an angle, so then my plates are pushing squarely against the tubing and not at an angle. So we'll put it out, we'll put a straight section where our drive shaft loop will eventually go, and then angle this back and then back, you know, harder than it has to be. So overall I think it will give us a better product, maybe, or it's going to make it very much weaker, and I don't know. But since we have the arc here, essentially an arc, it should make it stronger to push against, but these will be essentially the weak point. But since we already have our exhaust cut throughs here, I was going to just do the whole thing at an angle and then just make the middle angle, but then our exhaust won't work because 115 degrees from here, or 75 degrees is what our angle needs to be. So yeah, that wouldn't be real good for our exhaust. So it'd essentially be running through like this, and that's not gonna work. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna split our angle in half, cut it half and half, and then cut our center, and hopefully we don't fuck this up. We'll see. So I'm going to we're going to use our fixture table. I think it's 36 inches. Yeah. It's like 36 inches. You know, if only I had a tape measure. Let's see. 36. So it's a little too long for our cross member, because it's 36 and a half is what it was between the rails. So we can always go diagonally on the table. We'll mark it out and then cut it, re-weld it, and put it back together. I think overall it'll give us a better product than just angling the plates. I do still have a little piece of this tube left right here. So for in the middle, if we need more, which we will, this should be plenty to make up that difference. And at some point we're going to have to do a drive shaft tube. So actually, with the way we're doing this, we'll probably end up doing a two-piece drive shaft. Just with the 2-link, it'll make things a lot easier, and then we won't have to worry so much about pinion angles and all that crazy shit that everybody bitches about with having the 2-link. That's one thing everybody bitches about. So ideally, our pivot would have been all the way up where the yoke is coming out of the transmission, but with the way the car's designed, we don't have a clear path, and it's not going to work. So we'll do this. We'll cut this fucker, angle it out. Hopefully my measurements are correct. We'll see. Probably going to do it with an angle grinder. Yeah, maybe. Really don't want to fuck this up, so I already have a bunch of work in this thing. I really don't want to screw it up. So, all right, let's get to it. All right, so when we measured out there before I pulled this down, it's around 115 degrees. This doesn't have to be exact because we do the giant joints, but we gotta get pretty close. So, but that was off of here. So that was, yeah, 115 degrees. So we gotta get it pretty close. So for this side, so 115 degrees, right? Minus 90 makes 75, or no, not minus 90. Whatever. It gives us 75 degrees, right? So no, we need 25 off, so we need 65 degrees. So yeah, 115 minus 90 is a difference of 25. So we'll take 25 off of our 90. That should give us our relation to 180. So it should be about 65 degrees. I say should be. So, this thing shut off on me, so I'm going to make a reference. Just a quick little angle on here, just in case. Mainly because I already took this out and I don't want to measure it. Don't want to put it back in. So we'll zero this at 180. All right, also 114 degrees, what shows there. So our table is a little crooked, of course, because it is cheap. Come on. All right, so we'll put this at 115. There we go. All right, so we're pretty close, 115 degrees. All right, just want to double check that that is actually what I read before it went off on me. So we are at 115 degrees, so that'll work. So now for our angle here, we got splitter difference. In order to make the same cut, that way when we put it back together, the tubing is the same. If we cut it at 115, it's going to create some wonky shit. The tubing's not going to line up, so you guys split it in half. All right, so 115, all right, split that in half. It's like 57 and a half. All right, yeah, 57 and a half. So that is where we need to go. So put this all the way down. We'll zero that. So 57.5. Come on. All right, there we go. 57.5. So that should be our line here that we have to cut. So we'll cut here, and then I'll flip it over. All right, because that'll give us half of our line, and then the other half on this side. Right, we'll do another 57.5 this way. All right, that'll give us our pie. We'll cut out this little V. All right, we'll cut out this V, and then should mesh back together, and it should give us our 115 degrees. So biggest thing we got to figure out now is how far in we're going to do this. So it looks like there's about 4 inches between here, so we'll just go ahead and split it. All right, we'll go 10 inches from the end. We'll do this, that way it's the same number on both sides. Take our little baby speed square here. Here's our straight mark. All right, there we go. So now we got our 2 reference marks. All right, so from here, we're going to do our 57.5. So we'll line it up here, which this is going to be fun because the way this tube is, because I already did the cutouts, which probably should have waited, obviously. But it is what it is. We'll make it work. Line it up here. All right, there's one of them. Now the other one, yeah, it's going to be a problem because the ruler's too long. So how are we going to do this, you say? Well, that's a great question. So we'll use our little pivot here. Pivot, all right. We'll line it up. I have no idea if this is going to work. Probably not. No, same problem. So yeah, I can't even get it this way. So you get part of it. So we'll line it up here. We'll get this flat. Make us some mark. All right, that's our angle. We'll come back on this side, line up our line. There we go. All right, so this is the part we're going to cut out. So when we cut this out, it should give us our 115 degrees that we're looking for. All right, so this will come out. It'll allow this to bend over. So ideally, I just want to run it in here. I don't really want to cut all the way through. I'd like to just bend it here and then line these back up. We'll see how that goes. Again, this is, we'll probably just have to cut all the way through because we already have these brackets and stuff on here. So it is what it is. We'll make it work. So we do have our table that we can, you know, line shit back up with. So and if we screw it up, well, we can make another one. I just gotta make a trip to the store. So let's get the other side done. All right, so let's do, really probably should have done it this way. That way we're going out like this. Whatever. Anyway. Alright. Now I'm gonna get this side. Just did it, and I don't remember how I just did it. Sad, right? Come on, puppy. Here we go. All right, so now we have our two marks. We have our pie here, our pie here. We'll cut these out. Should be able to bring it together. It'll give us our mark. And then you just got to do the middle, which will be essentially the same thing. We'll just do half of one. We'll go like this. We'll cut the center section out. I'll make my life a little easier this time. I'll just butt it against here. Cut that out, and then where a straight piece needs to go in there, we'll measure that out. So I really don't feel like doing the math. So let's get to it. All right, so we almost fucked up. So it's talking about splitting it and all the other crap. The problem is this. So 115 was the angle that we needed the rod to be at. All right, so the problem is if we split this, it's going to create a 90. So we need this. So 65 is our angle in here. So 65 is here. So we need to split the 65. All right, so 32 and a half. All right, so that's a big difference from 57. So yeah. So this is why always double check your stuff. Go through what's going on and double check to make sure it works. Look at it and be like, I don't think that's right. And be like, hey, dum-dum, you did it wrong. So I'm going to wipe all these clean with some acetone. We are going to put 32 and a half degrees on here. And then Yeah. Maybe. No. Yeah, so this is where our, so this was our 57. I need to redo this. I'll be back. All right, finally got it sorted out. So after doing some math, all right, so we were 115 degrees and that was through the center line of our point. All right, so the opposite side of that is 65 on this inside. We had a 90 up here. So this bottom side ends up being 35, which makes this, or sorry, 25. Yeah, 25. Right, because the whole triangle equals 180, which makes this outside angle 155. So half of that is 72 and a half. No. 77 and a half. All right, which is what we have set at. So 77 and a half. That's what our angles are at here, here, and here, here. All right, so I should just be able to make one cut here. All right, and then since these are not directionally dependent, I can just flip them over and then we can weld this back. Don't have to do any crazy pie cuts, none of that stuff. We'll just cut it straight and call it good. It took a little while, but got the math done and we should be good to go now. So let's get to cutting. All right, so we got it all cut up. We got our math right. This is at 115 degrees. These are at 115 degrees. So this will run back with our arms. Got to work on our fit up, get it a little tighter. This fucked up over here. So I don't trust my bandsaw because quite frankly, it's kind of a janky setup. It doesn't really cut too square. So on big stuff like this, not real reliable. So I had cut two sides. I cut the top angle and then one side with my cutoff wheel on my grinder, and I should just cut all four sides and been done with it. So for the most part, because I just had that one back cut and then it's cut in the top, and I just ran the bandsaw through. For the most part, as you see, it did pretty decent. We definitely need to do some cleanup for sure to get these a little tighter, because it's not going to work. But this one over here is yeah, that's going to take some work to get that fixed. Yeah, it's way off. So shit happens, right? So we'll get it fixed. We'll make all the adjustments to both sides, that way everything's straight. So measured it, it's at 35 and a half inches. This is the piece I cut out from the original one, so of course it's too small, but you get the basic shape of it. Looks pretty cool. I think it's gonna work. Structurally, I think it'll be pretty strong. So whenever I'll weld these up, and then I'll put a little strengthening plate, kind of a fish plate on top on each joint, just to give it a little more strength. That way we're not relying totally on the weld. It'll give a little extra oomph. And then probably put some sort of gusset on the back side. Just put a plate, depending on whenever we get our drive shaft in, know where it's going to be. Then we'll do a plate gusset. That way it'll kind of strengthen it, and then it'll tie it all together. But yeah, so that's where we're at so far. So more work, so we'll get it done. All right, so here we go. It took a lot of work, but we got the fitment pretty tight. Everything's nice and flush. This middle is temporary. That's why I wasn't really concerned about the fit up. But it is the right length now. All right, everything looks pretty nice. These are at 115 degrees like they need to be. And it was a lot of work, but overall, I'm pretty happy with what we have. It should be the right length. It's 36 and a half, and then like it's like a 32nd over, so leave a little bit of room just in case. But yeah, so next thing will be put it in the car, and then once we figure out our transmission tunnel, or if we're going to do a two-piece or whatever, that'll be the next part. If we put a carrier bearing in here for a two-piece drive shaft, which we might, we'll see. It would make things a lot easier as far as pinion angles and all that, because then I could just set the rear and it would pivot up and down and it wouldn't cause any problems. So but then you have to deal with two-piece drive shaft and all that crap, so we'll see. Yeah, we'll see. So as you see, it is dark now because it is 6:30 and we are in the winter and everything gets dark now. So tomorrow I'll put this in the car and hopefully our links line up and we are good to go from there and we can tack it in. So stay tuned. So another day working on the shoebox on the rear suspension. So last night, working the drawway by light, I was able to get one arm on. So the these saddles here are stock C10. The saddle and the U-bolt, that's all stock C10 stuff. So you can kind of see what's going on here a little bit. I'm gonna work on the other one today. So basically what I did, the arms are kind of long, so I cut them off last night, or I cut off one of them. Still got to do the other side. So this is a stock C10 saddle. As you see, it puts it at an angle. All right, so your axle, because that's the way this system was originally designed, was on the 70 C10s. They're called truck arms. So if you hear everybody talk about truck arms, this is them. But their axle, the diameter is 3 inches. Our 8/8 is 3 1/4. So I got to open these up with the grinder, and then it fits really well. The U-bolts, however, are quite large. So they're big enough to fit over our 3 1/4 inch axle without having to do anything to them. So the other thing we did was we took and put a spacer between our saddle and the arm, but our axles, gives us 2 inches of standoff. So what that does is a few things. It gives us more clearance, first of all. So up here, this cross member, which really is just really a support for the floor. We may eventually take this out, because with that cross member there for the arms, there's really no reason for it, because it provides the same thing. But you can see the little pads up here at top that support the floor. So we'll probably leave it in and just maybe trim it and you know, restructure it. But anyway, enough about that. But dropping this arm down, so this is at pretty much the full extent of the U-bolt. So we can use the full U-bolt. We don't have a bunch of it hanging down. Puts a 2 inch spacer in here, which gives us some more clearance up here. And the arms are almost level. All right, they're slightly kicked up in the back. So I left them a little long because I don't know if I'm gonna put the bag back here, or if I'm gonna put it up here. So the bags themselves are pretty beefy, and we do have clearance on both sides, on either end to put them. So I know a couple of the places out there run them on the back, and then most of them run them on the front, on top of the arm. So this is our bag. It's a little dirty because I was sticking it in the car last night, but these are our SS6 bags. They're rated for 2,500 pounds, so should be plenty. I think they have 6 or 7 inches of working travel. I gotta look it up, but gotta do a little more research on these as to far as what they like where in their range they operate the best. So and go from there. So today we're going to finish up the second arm, get that all done, and then we're going to probably work on either the pan hard bar or the bag mounts. Need to get both of them done. Also need to figure out what size shocks to get. So right now we're sitting at ride height, 5 inches of ride height, but I can't get the wheel in right now, so it needs to droop down a little bit so we can get a wheel in there, because right now with the way it is, with the way the ride height is and that wheel being tucked up in there, we need to drop it like a good 10 inches in order to be able to get our wheel in there. So maybe not that much, like 8 or probably 6 inches. But anyway, you get where I'm going with this. So but yeah, so we'll get to doing this other arm. We'll get it cut off, we'll make our spacer, get everything cut off, and clearance our little fish plate, and be good to go. All right, so we got a few things going on here. So I used this chunk of our axle tube that we cut off when we shortened it, marked our saddle here. That's what we need to remove in order to fit that onto there. I got our little spacer block marked out with center punch, so we'll drill that. And then the big old U-bolt can go in. So yeah, let's get to work. Alright, so a lot of hole drilling, and where we're at, we're ready to go. We got our holes drilled and our link. We got it cut to the same length as the other side, so that if we put our bags back here, we should have plenty of room to mount them on the back, or however we're going to do it. Really, honestly not sure yet. This whole contraption goes together, our nuts go on the bottom, and that is how it will be set up in the car. So probably going to do the bags on the back, just mainly because if we end up changing the front mounts, because I have those adjustable locations, it's going to change essentially the spring rate of the bag, because on how it compresses. So the angle, it's going to compress the bag more, if that makes sense. And I want to kind of be able to get to them and fine tune them. So I think we're going to run them back here. And it should allow more leverage on the front mount. So in theory, they should ride better. It shouldn't be as harsh of a ride because it's acting upon that whole lever mechanism rather than, you know, just that front little section. It has a long arm versus a short. So we're going to try it. There is plenty of room behind them, so that's good. The gas tank is there, but there's a nice little, like, it's almost like they're made for them. There's a little like nook. I'll show you when I get out there. But let's get this thing on the car, and then our two links will be on. Our truck arms will be mounted, and then really all we got to do is bags, shocks, and panhard bar, and then that part's done. So let's get this on the car and then go from there. All right, so second link's in. Now you can kind of see what we got going on here. It's over the top. I don't think we're going to have to actually put a tunnel in. because the drive shaft is pretty far up there. From the center line of the rear end is about here, and the transmission is way up here, so it's another 4 to 6 inches higher than this, and this is ride height. So I think we might be okay here to just run this the way it is. We'll see. I'll know once we get a drive shaft, but the links are in. The rear end is centered, and you can see our actual bolts are just inside the frame there on both sides, so that gives us maximum articulation, maximum response of the suspension. Yeah, so once again, I'm out of white. So next will be bag mounts. I need to figure out where the bags are going to go so that I can figure out the pan hard bar. Bags, get that on, get those mounted. We are going to have to cut a pretty good chunk out of the center of the trunk. As you see right now, it is hitting, so I can't even articulate the suspension to see if it's binding or anything, which it shouldn't, because we have Johnny joints, we have all the other stuff. It should be good to go, shouldn't be any problems. But yeah, so we're centered right up on where the original bump stop was. It was in here, so we're good to go on both sides. We're gonna have to do a pretty serious C-notch, so all of this area in here, pretty much here over, is gonna go away. We'll build this probably as like a 6-inch notch. That way we can go full depth. The bags do have bump stops built into them, but we'll put a secondary bump stop. But yeah, that should do it. Overall, I am pretty happy with the setup so far. And if it doesn't work, well, we can always build a parallel 4-link. But shouldn't have any problems. So let's get to the bags. So that's going to do it for this video. Otherwise, this thing is going to be like 2 hours long, and yeah, don't really want to do that. So basically, it runs down the basis of where we're at right now. We got the crossmember built. We got our truck arms in. It's all mounted. So next part 2 will be bag mounts and probably the pan hard bar. So we'll should be able to split this into 2 parts, and it shouldn't be too lengthy. So look for that in the next video, and stay tuned and take care.